Welcome to Basic Ball Joint Builds. I'm Butch, and I like to build ball joint figures. Using this elastic cord, I'm going to show you how I make the figure 8 that's used to keep the tension on my ball joint figures. On this piece of elastic cord, I've already measured out it for this size of doll here, and I've marked out its quarters along its length. I don't do a whole lot of measuring, so a quarter will usually be equal to about the center of the chest, or where the loop will come down from the head, down to the ankle or the toe where the pin is going to slip through. The reason I use a figure 8 is it'll leave a loop, and that loop will let me have somewhere to slide the pin in to lock it in there instead of having to have a little wire hoop that's hanging around. Having the elastics doubled also adds a consistency to the tension that is on the joints of the doll. Now, you have to heat up this elastic a bit, or it frays out at the end. If you put too much heat to it, it expands, and it makes it hard to get the sewing needle through. So you just want enough heat so it just melts enough so that it's not going to fray, and not enough that it's going to bubble up. Here's a closer look at that elastic cord I like to use. You can find it at any craft or sewing store. But here's what happens when you add just enough heat. That wasn't even enough for it to catch on fire. But I'm going to show you the difference in size. Look how much thicker that actually became just because of that heat. It's because of the rubber. It shrinks and pulls back. And not only does it make it thicker, it also makes it harder for the needle to go through. I sew these instead of tying them off in knots, because if you tie a knot, that knot is thicker than two of the elastics together. And most of the holes I drill in the dolls will be big enough for the two elastics to slide in and out freely through. When I sew them, I use a really super thin needle, as thin as I can get, and I try to make sure I go through the very center of the elastic cord. You really don't want to be off to one side or the other, and it can be quite stiff to pull through, so you might want like some pliers or something. Once I get most of it drawn through, I'll loop it over, and I'll draw the excess through so that it's tight against the needle. That way, when I draw the needle, now that will actually be tied off. There's something about when you go through the elastic with the thread that changes the coating on the thread, and it'll want to knot and twist up. So always keep an eye on that, and maybe even hold it in a light pinch so that when it's drawing through, it'll keep it from knotting. Generally, I'll go through each side 2 or 3 times. I find that's more than strong enough. I don't put a whole lot of tension. It's just a stretch tension that I go for. Too much tension and the elastics will break down over time, and the doll will get pretty sloppy and you'll be restringing it again. Or it'll pull the threads. There, we got pretty much the first half of our figure 8 made. And when I start the next one, I like to make sure that both the ends are butt to butt. I don't like to have one on one side, one on the other. So I make sure that when I push my needle through so that it can start sewing the next one, that it'll be at the top of where I've sewn the two together. And then that way it makes it easier when I go to line them up. The elastic always has a curl to one way or the other. So I like to make sure that when I go to sew the next one in, that the curl actually works with the elastic. It doesn't really make a difference when you put the doll together. I just find it's easier when you're lining them up and you're getting your first stitches through the elastic. It is best if you can have both the ends pretty much touching. You don't want them overlapping. That extra thickness can make it hard for sliding the elastics in and out when you're ready to insert them into the figure. I'm actually making this video because a viewer of one of my videos commented about wanting to know how I tied the knot for making my figure eights. I tried to explain it to them as best I could, but nothing works quite as good as a video. The thought of somebody maybe of building a doll, following my process, and got to the point where they were stringing it together and were stumped. So I couldn't live with myself leaving somebody hanging like that if they had all their pieces out in front of them. So actually I turned around and made this video as quickly as I could. I really don't mind making a video and posting it for somebody's question. Sometimes it's just the easiest way to get the answer you're looking for. And in this ball joint kind of community, sometimes the answers are so elusive. My channel was never ever intended just to be a show off of dolls. I always planned on having a playlist with little tips and tricks, parts and accessories as you may say. I also know that some people tune in just to see the accessories and figure out how I build some of these. So I'm going to end up dropping them also in a playlist so that anybody that's watching can always just go and find out exactly how I do stuff. Not just a quick glimpse, but a longer, broader view so they can see maybe some of the mistakes and problems I had to overcome. And of course, a long view of just how to build the doll, no accessories. I'm still new to all this, and I'm still kind of fumbling around how to get the best camera angles to keep things in view, edit stuff, and have it go quick enough that I'm not spending all my time doing that, and that I can get on to the next build, because I do build these dolls pretty quick. And there's our figure eight, all complete and ready to be used in a figure. If you found some of this helpful, maybe hit that like button and maybe that subscribe so that you'll know when my next doll or tip or creation comes out. There's a doll every month.